Alrighty. Am I recording? Yo, what's up? Today I was scrolling through some comments on YouTube and I came across an interesting question that I would like to answer with all of you and share it here on my channel. Perhaps you get some value out of it. We'll see. If you're interested in the topic of building a bigger chest and putting on some muscle mass in your upper body, maybe this could interest you. So stick around. This person asked the following question: can push-ups replace a dumbbell bench press if I want to build my chest? Why did I decide to make a whole video on this particular question? Well, because I think it is a tricky one. I've been thinking about this question. I would like to share my 2 cents on the topic. If I was going to be completely honest with you, and if you were a client of mine, I would give you 2 different answers: yes and no. Yes being the short answer and no being the long one. I know this sounds very confusing, but please hear me out. Yes, the push-up could replace a dumbbell bench press to some extent if you bought a program and that program has you do dumbbell bench press, but you don't have access to that type of equipment. For practical reasons and for the sake of removing paralysis by analysis, I could argue that replacing a dumbbell bench press with a push-up would make sense in that particular context. Then I would help you make some tweaks in your program to make sure that you apply progressive overload to the new movement. On the other hand, the long answer to this particular question, can push-ups replace a dumbbell bench press if I want to build my chest, would have to be, wait for it, no. Why? Because every exercise is unique and therefore irreplaceable. And yes, I would totally agree that both movements, the dumbbell bench press and the push-up, would build your foundational upper body horizontal pressing strength. They both target the anterior delts, the pectoralis, and the triceps. So in theory, you could argue that a push-up would be a good replacement for a dumbbell bench press from a muscle building perspective because the primary movers are pretty much the same. However, if you look at the 2 movements from a more anatomical, more global perspective, then you would realize that each movement brings something unique to the table, and then make the case that no, push-ups cannot replace the dumbbell bench press because they are very different. So we're going to have a look at the 2 exercises, one against the other. We're going to compare them and see the differences. If you do that, you're going to be in a much better position to make a final decision on which movement would make more sense for you based on your personal circumstances as well as your individual goals. So let's have a look at them. So what are the main differences? Well, the push-up is a close kinetic exercise. What does this mean? So what happens is that your hands are fixed onto an object and then you're moving your body across space. This could be great for people with poor body awareness because push-ups force them to learn how to move their body when they are pressing against an external object in a horizontalish direction. On the other hand, the dumbbell bench press is an open kinetic exercise, which means that your body is in a fixed position and only your upper extremities are moving across space. So now you move your arms instead of your body. From that particular perspective, you could argue that push-ups are more functional because they would have a better transfer to real life. Outside the bench press, I don't think there is a real life application to this particular skill. The skill of laying down on a bench in a semi-arched position with your scapula retracted, feet onto the ground to transfer force, and pushing an external object with your arms in a kind of horizontal line. However, if you think about it, you're much more likely to face a situation where you have to push your body off the ground to get up and run. So in real life, outside of the gym, chances are that you would be facing situations where you have to, push yourself off the ground, which is a task similar to what you would do during a push-up. However, from a purely muscle building perspective, and more specifically for local growth in your chest, I would argue that the dumbbell bench press could be a better option. As I said before, the dumbbell bench press is an open kinetic exercise, which means that your arms can move freely because you're holding 2 independent objects, and this allows for a much higher degree of shoulder horizontal abduction, which is a key function for the pectoralis muscle complex. Yes, you still get to overload this function during a push-up, but to a much lesser degree. Basically because your arms are fixed onto the ground and you cannot bring them closer together. If you wanted to specifically overload this function during a push-up, then you would have to use gymnastic rings. But this will change the whole dynamic of the push-up because it would bring a lot of instability into the movement. Convenience is another factor that would favor push-ups over the dumbbell bench press. You can do push-ups anywhere, and sometimes you have to make decisions based on what is available to you. And if you're on the road and you don't have access to a bench and a set of dumbbells, etc., then it would make sense to use the push-up as the main horizontal pressing movement to make sure that you adhere to your program, even if the original version prescribed the dumbbell bench press. However, I have to point out that when it comes to applying progressive overload, loading the push-up could be a thorn in the butt sometimes. If you think about it, overloading a dumbbell bench press would be very intuitive. You pick a heavier set of dumbbells, job done. That's it. It's very simple. However, when it comes to adding external resistance to a push-up, then you have to consider certain aspects. Now, where in the world do I place the weight? Do I put it on my back? And if so, where on my back? On my upper back, middle back, close to the butt? Do I need a weighted vest? Or do I use a belt and then leave the weight hanging? And if you go ahead and use a belt to overload a push-up, which I would recommend in most cases, then you would need extra equipment to elevate your body. So yes, the push-up is more functional and more convenient, but when it comes to overloading a push-up with external weight, then it's not as easy as that you might have thought. Another consideration you would need to have in mind is body weight fluctuations. If you were to gain weight, this could have a positive impact on your performance for the dumbbell bench press, simply because you now improve on your leverages, you gain some padding with that extra fat, and mass moves mass. When it comes to absolute strength, if you're heavier, you're likely to move more external weight. Push-ups, on the other hand, would be negatively impacted by this body weight gain. Now you would have to do more work to complete the same number of repetitions. So chances are that your max rep count would go down in number, and that's fine. Because all things equal, you having the same strength, you are relatively stronger with a lighter body weight. Another thing that I would like to bring to your attention is that push-ups are very core intensive. Essentially, a push-up is a dynamic plank. As a result, your core could be the limiting factor in you not completing a set, because your core gives up before the primary movers do. But if you wanted to remove the core as a potential limiting factor when overloading a horizontal pressing movement, then the bench press with dumbbells would be a better option. If your technique is solid and you have this movement down, chances are that the limiting factor would be one of the primary movers, either the anterior delt, the pectoralis, or the triceps. If your technique is good, the lack of strength in any of those primary muscles is likely to be the reason why you fail a set. Outside of these three muscle groups, I don't think I've ever seen anyone fail a set of a dumbbell bench press because of the legs or the butt or the back. And finally, the elephant in the room, the thing that really widens the gap between a push-up and a dumbbell bench press with dumbbells. During a push-up, the muscles surrounding your scapula complex move freely. They can do retraction and protraction. This is great for overall shoulder health, especially because during the horizontal pressing movement in the push-up, you are also strengthening your serratus anterior, because this muscle, which is so prominent in boxers, assists you in doing the protraction at the top of the push-up. However, if your priority number one is to build a juicier, bigger chest, perhaps this dynamic natural movement that the push-up offers is not the best option for you. You see, the dumbbell bench press might not reproduce how your body would want to push an external object in the real world, but the fact of the matter is that a fixed scapular retraction puts you in a position where you can preferentially target and overload the pectoralis muscle. You're essentially sticking out your chest, pushing your shoulders back and then giving a better opportunity for your pectoralis to contribute at the bottom position of a horizontal press. So if you only care about growing your testicles, the dumbbell bench press is the clear winner in my opinion. But if your goal is overall upper body muscle growth that develops your horizontal pressing strength in the most functional, global, and healthy way, I would include the two movements into your program. However, if your goal is overall upper body growth in a way that maximizes your chest gains, then I would want to add a third, smaller movement to target horizontal abduction exclusively, something like a machine or a cable chest fly. So, when it comes to hypertrophy, the best approach is almost always more comprehensive. You want to understand all the different functions of a given muscle group and then train them all. It's difficult to find a single exercise that accomplishes all that, so a combination of various exercises is your best bet for the best gains possible. If we were to take the two movements that we analyzed today, that is the push-up and the dumbbell bench press, then you could argue that a machine or a cable fly would be a great supplement to these two. Another example of a combination of exercises that would accomplish the same goal would be something like a barbell bench press, a Bulgarian dip with gymnastic rings, and a standing cable crossovers. If you want to learn more about the topic of hypertrophy training, I would recommend that you check out this short video where I compare strength training and hypertrophy training. I really hope I answered today's question, which was, can a push-up replace a dumbbell bench press if I want to build muscle? Like, subscribe, share with friends, do the YouTube thing. I'll see you soon. Stay fit, stay strong. Peace.